Well, hey everybody, welcome to the channel and a quick update video on a recent release that Atlas has done before, but they're coming out again with some refinements and changes in paint scheme and such. These are the HO-840C locomotives. We have UP, Canadian National, and Norfolk Southern to take a look at, so let's get started. Alright, I've decided to give the Canadian National folks some love and unbox the Canadian National version, giving you a rest from UP and NS. Sure, Canadian National's in there though. I model way too much, but UP and NS is a lot further up the ladder. But as you see, it just slides out of the box. Just as you saw there, there's warranty information. So it's a warranty card. There's also tips about the warranty and exploded parts diagram, as you can see there slightly. And there is quick start guide for the LokSound V5. So we can use that quick start guide to cover the function list later on in the video. As you slide this out, the top pops off here, as you can see, and there's some parts here. These are plugs. These will go in the bottom of the fuel tank if you want to cover up the screw holes, and these are sunshades. So I do reviews out of the box, so I typically do not install those. When you get to the bottom, you'll see the two screws here, and I have the ultimate tool in laziness, an electronic screwdriver. So that'll make quick work of these. And then the locomotive releases, and we're good to go. Alright, since we've covered these before, we'll be brief, as in skipping most of the testing, but you can always check out the previous full reviews for all of the details, like polling, test, weight, etc. But on the front of this locomotive, you have a cab roof, air conditioner up top, headlights and number boards, separately applied sand filler hatches and grab irons. There's windshield wipers on all four of these windows, and you have your nice stanchions, coupler cut bar, lower ditch lights under the anti-climber there. You have a snow plow with window for the MU hose and airline hose, and you also have an Atlas coupler, Atlas Easy Mate 2 coupler, or Atlas coupler, I forget what they call those. But I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little better. And I always get the coupler brands confused, so I just know it's an Atlas coupler. You can disregard that Easy Mate, because I don't know if that's accurate. You do have a cab figure installed here. Nice sill detail, truck detail, fuel tank detail with sight glass and emergency shutoff, lower mounted bell. The dynamic brake fan grill area of the locomotive is nicely done. You can see that grill detail separate. It's not just molded in with the same depth of the rest of the mold. Horn, exhaust towards the rear. As we get to the radiator fan grill, you can see some nice detail there as well with that separation up top, which helps cool the air. We're going to go down a little bit more so you can see the trucks. MU hose on the rear, making that W formation, along with coupler cut bar. MU hoses again, accessory hoses like I mentioned before. Stanchions look very straight. There's a treaded walkway on this, so that's nice. And more of the same detail up to the front. There's also windshield wipers and doors modeled on the back for crew access to the cab. and cab figures on both sides. There's also this free separate chain detail that connects the shell to the truck. So you'd have to disconnect that if you need to take it apart for anything, but it's pretty simple to do. And now we're back up at the front. So that is the 360 of the CN. We'll take a quick brief look at the UP and NS. All right, here's the NS version. As you can see, there's going to be road name, road number specific details from Atlas. So road name, in this case, the NS does not have that cab air conditioning unit. Poor crews are probably sweating it out a little more in there. But you do have a lot of the same detail we mentioned as far as the cab configuration, the nose. Ditch light configuration is going to be above the anti-climber versus below on the Canadian National. Obviously differences in paint scheme as well, but some of the contrasts, like the dynamic brake fan grills here, give you a little bit more of a look versus the CN, which are a little more subdued. NS on the side with the logo prior to the horsehead logo. Horn, exhaust. There's a good look at the radiator profile there, and a look at how straight those handrails are. And more of the same detail on this side, including that brake chain we talked about before. So really nice locomotive in terms of detail. This is the top of the line for Atlas, their gold series, so pretty sweet. Last but not least, UP. One thing I haven't mentioned is the brake wheel detail there, but UP's got a similar configuration to the NS. Again, no air conditioning on the roof, but again, the ditch lights move to below the anti-climber on the UP. So the UP is kind of a combination of the two previous ones we looked at. Again, sunshades are provided in the bag for these, but usually I don't mess with those unless I'm doing some workbench time, so I don't really have the schedule ability to install those right now. But it gives you a good look at the side. These trucks are a little lighter than the other two, being gray, so you can get a better look at the trucks, the actuators, the sanding lines, and even the little air reservoirs on each side of the truck on the front, speed recorder. So all of that detail is a little more visible here on that gray. Back to the rear, again with a nice profile to give you an idea of what you're looking at in terms of handrail detail. And back to the front. On this side, it looks like we have MU receptacles there and there, yeah, on the rear. And you have that brake chain on the front again as well. That truck chain detail. All right, so let's get these under operation. As we mentioned, this is an ESU LokSound V5 decoder. There's 31 functions listed. We've covered these in previous videos, so we'll just go over some of the main ones, including prime mover, which is F8. It starts most ESU decoders. So as you can see, that's the startup sequence. Headlight and ditch lights are nice and bright and have a nice yellow incandescent appearance. So those are really spot on in my opinion. One is bell. Two is horn. And the horn does auto ring the bell. 3's coupler. 4's dynamic brake, which we need to be moving. 5's gyro light if equipped, it's not. 6 emergency light if equipped, which it's not. 7's flange squeal, we can cover that. Moving here. There's a combination of flange squeal and brake squeal there. 8 is prime mover, as we mentioned. 9 is drive hold, which is going to keep your current speed setting in, and then your throttle just becomes a prime mover increaser or decreaser. 11's fan sound. 12 is dimmer, so it's going to dim your headlight to rule 17 lighting. Take that off. 13 is rear ditch lights flashing by default, but these aren't equipped with rear ditch lights. 15's handbrake, or 14's handbrake. Let's do that one real quick. So I take it back, some of these are not equipped with rear ditch lights. This one is. I'll show you a view of that real quick. Here's a look at your rear ditch lights, and that's what 13 is saying, is it'll be flashing by default. So you can override that with 13 and make them steady. A lot of the other sounds are just sounds we've gone over before. Some kind of out of normal features like 22 cab door, 23 engine compartment doors, there's 24 reverser centered, 25 shutters open close, we'll do that one. So yeah, lots of different sounds. 31 sound fader. So fully equipped DCC decoder here. As you can see, I've got the UP here. We're going to kind of cycle through a couple different versions as we go over some things. This is slow speed control. So I'm going to move this at 1 out of 128 on my NCE decoder. And we'll see how it reacts. It looks like I'll go to 2 here. 2 is where it really starts moving. Definitely needs some smoothing out, so we'll go to 3. Smoothing out better there. 4. I think we're completely smoothed out at that point. So just a little bit on the really slow speed control there. Does this need to get moving? Another thing to mention is the ditch lights on the front of UP are below the anti-climber like I mentioned, so you can see those there, but again, very bright. Alright, we're going to do a speed test with this. I see that the AccuTrack 2 speedometer is on. People have commented about the kilometers per hour light flashing. That's just the status light. It is set to miles per hour and HO scale. However, because this lurches at slow speeds, I think they've got it set extremely low, like under a scale mile an hour. So I'm going to move it to where it's not lurching so much. So we'll be at 3 speed steps, and that will register, I'm guessing, right at or below still a scale mile an hour. And you can always change the start voltage with configuration variables and make adjustments yourself if you don't like how they operate. But yeah, under a scale mile an hour, even at 3 speed steps. So I kind of negate 1 and 2 speed steps when you're still under a scale mile an hour. What I look for is that the locomotive moves smoothly at about a scale mile an hour, and that's what it's doing. So, all right, that is the NS version, again with the ditch lights up top, and a pretty nice locomotive. You even have just a really nice decoder in there, so it sounds good. I'm going to do a pull test for you because it has been a while. I looked back at a full review on these, so we'll do a pull test and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. Okay, locomotives in forward. I have the sound off, except for apparently the brake squeal. There, I got all that off. You can hear the motor's pretty quiet, so that was the point of having sound off. And you have 3.3 We're talking about 45, 50 freight cars per locomotive. Not bad at all. 2 locomotives and you've got a realistic consist, and 3 locomotives you have PSR consists. So even though these are a little before that era, I believe, of PSR, but plenty of pulling power, especially with 2 to pull realistic length trains. Well, that's going to wrap up our look at the Atlas 8-40C locomotive. These are -8 variations, and you can see some of the variations I've shown in the video, and you can see them here pretty evidently too. I think these are well executed models, smooth once you get to 1 speed step, or 3 speed steps I should say, but still less than a scale mile an hour. Lit number boards, front and rear ditch lights that flash as appropriate. Overall, pretty happy with these, and I love the ESU LokSound version 5. So we'll leave you with a run by of all these in a unit train, or in a power move I should say, and we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.